Welcome to the podcast. We Do Recover with Jared Miller, your host.
And I'm Dr. Terry Sellers, your co-host.
This is a podcast about recovery from addiction.
We want to talk about what successful recovery can look like.
Brought to you by Steps Recovery Center and the St. George Hilton Garden Inn.
You're listening to episode 31 of We Do Recover. I'm your host of this thing, Jared Miller. Today I'm joined in studio by your co-host, our medical expert, Dr. Terry Sellers.
Woo, woo. What's up, everybody?
What's going on, buddy? I'm happy that you're here.
Yeah, you know.
We also have
here too.
Absolutely. We also have in the house our producer and makes this thing possible, Sean Denovan.
I pushed the buttons.
Oh, he didn't do the holler today.
Oh, holler!
That's like his become a signature thing, man.
Yeah.
And finally, let's get to the man that this episode is all about, episode 31, our featured guest, Chris Martinez.
What's up, everyone? I'm glad to be here.
We're happy that you're here too, man. Happy you could be in
good.
house with us.
Yeah, it's all good.
So this podcast is recorded in Slushy today for
Thank
episode
you.
31, St.
Thank
George,
you.
Utah. That's right. Episode 31, part 1, is brought to you by Steps Recovery Centers, where addiction ends and healing begins. Seriously, if you or a loved one need help, give them a call. 801-800-8142. I promise, even if you just have questions, just reach out. They're an amazing resource. They'll get you plugged in, get you some help. All right, well, let's kick this thing off. What's going on in your world, Doc?
Couple. Well, one thing in particular. So I got my second COVID vaccine yesterday.
I heard that hurts.
It's not that bad.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's a little uncomfortable, but it's not a big deal. But according to all my friends now, I've been injected by a microbot that Bill Gates controls. So none of my thoughts are my own anymore. And I'm completely under all government control.
So you can't
good.
be held liable for what comes out on this podcast.
Exactly.
Because
This is all Bill Gates' fault.
Yeah, that whole chip thing.
Yeah.
I was listening to something. That chip that controls you. That goes back to like a 1970s parody movie, and it's been perpetuated through multiple like cultures, religions, the Mark of the Beast, and
Really?
Bill Gates and the chip thing. It all goes back to this really crappy movie you can't even find on YouTube anymore.
Really?
Yeah, all goes back to that. There you go.
Well, I'm part of the movie now.
Okay, cool.
That's right. That's right. All right, Sean Denovan, what's new and good in your world?
Oh, we're working my side hustles. And actually, the side hustle I'm working on may benefit you.
Oh, what?
Oh, let's hear
Yeah,
this.
Some technology stuff I'm working on.
Way cool.
So when Sellers isn't here, we might be able to change things up a little bit to get some better audio.
Oh,
Nice.
wow. That could be cool.
Nice for when he Skypes in.
Yeah, possibly, maybe.
I love it.
Looking
man.
into it.
I like
Keep
your
up those side hustles.
Gonna charge you more for that.
Yeah, of course you will.
We'll talk. We'll talk off air.
But the Dr. Pepper's free, so that's okay.
Listen, just build a recording studio in my house. How much are those going for?
You want a cheap one or you want a nice one?
Well, a nice one, of course.
Okay, so how much do you want to do? You want a cheap one, like $300-$400?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
How
not
much does
bad.
an expensive one run you?
I don't know. It depends how many bells and whistles you want.
Can you go to 10,000?
Easy.
Easy?
Oh yeah, in a heartbeat.
Okay.
Easy.
Right
That's just my
on.
labor costs.
Just the labor
Yeah,
costs.
there you go.
All right. Well, let's get a little check in on our featured guest. Chris, what's new and good in your world, man?
Not a whole lot, just another day living the dream, trying to do my best to, navigate this sober lifestyle.
I like it.
I love
Yeah,
it.
I like it. That's what we do.
You took us right into my new and good.
Yeah, what's your
All
doing
right.
good?
So we got a lot going on. We've had amazing support with the Sober Society apparel. Dr. Sellers is wearing one version of our hat today.
Rocking the hat.
It's the arch brim. It's got the netted back.
Yeah.
And then I'm wearing the other one.
the arch brim is for us old folks
That's right. The flat brim.
that can't pull off a flat brim. I look stupid in a flat brim hat. It just doesn't work on my head.
It's a
So I got the arch brim. It's
rocking
good.
it. I like
Yeah.
the arch brim too. I
Yeah,
like the
thanks.
white on white, the white patch with the white back.
Yeah,
It's good
sweet.
looking. So, and then this one, we got this one. It's the all black. That's what we're going with, the all black. So, and then also those are going to be up on this Facebook page that you can order and we'll ship it out to you. Also, we got an event coming up. Because of all the love, we've been able to raise some money that we're going to give to the cause, right? People that are trying to transition into sober housing. And then I got thinking, I've made a few bucks on this thing. Might as well spread a little love for those people that are in recovery, right? Because we're always looking to give back. So April 10th, we've rented out Sand Hollow Aquatic Center. For those of you that want to come down, just wear your Sober Society swag, either a hat, a shirt, the hoodie, It's completely free to you. We got barbecue pits open. The whole place has been rented out. Bring your families, do a little barbecue and do a little socializing from 6:30 to 8 o'clock. So I'm super excited for that. It's going to be fun.
I'll be there.
It's
Yeah,
hard
that'd
to
be cool.
envision it on a snowy day, but I
Yeah,
promise
sure.
April 10th, it's going to be nice.
You promise?
I
think that's a
maybe I
bit,
shouldn't make
that's a bit of a
promises that I-
stretch.
yeah.
Hey, let me point out a couple of things. First of all, so this will be a great opportunity for any friends of the show to come by, check in, just say hi. I think all the podcast folks will be there. And the other thing I wanted to point out is it's okay if you make a little money off of this. It's not illegal.
I know.
Jared feels guilty taking any profit, even though he spends hours and hours a week working on this stuff. But it's okay. But listen, Jared's not taking home much money, so
That's
every
true.
time he makes a buck, he gives it back. So I love that.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
And I figured it'd be something fun for everybody.
I think it'll be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping it'll
We
be a
ought to
super fun
maybe
time.
have a little live feed and just check in with everybody that's there and have everybody give us just a little, tidbit of what's going on in their lives or something. That might be fun.
I'll be walking around with the Go
Yeah.
Live. That's a great
Let's do
idea.
it, and then
Yeah.
we can post it on the webpage and maybe even use it in the podcast the next week.
Absolutely. I love that idea.
Yeah, let's do
Love it.
that. That'd be fun.
Make it happen.
Yeah,
Right on.
Awesome.
Why don't
All
we
right.
dive into Chris?
Guess what we got going? We got
Yeah.
Chris Martinez. I'm gonna tell you. I got to tell you my story first, okay? So
get it.
growing up, one of my really good friends was Chris Martinez, and it just dawned on me that it's the same name. But I went fishing. So I met Chris I was bagging groceries in a grocery store named Publix, which is a grocery store in Florida, and it's a big chain. There's a bunch of Publix in Florida, and I met Chris there. He was a stock boy, and I was a bag boy. Which means he was cooler than me because stock boys are way better than bag boys, right?
Higher status.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, we went fishing one day, right? And I used to do some shark fishing in Florida.
Nice.
And it's pretty lazy fishing. Shark fishing, you just basically put a big roast beef on the end of a giant hook and throw it in the water and then lay there until the shark bites, and then you just reel them in.
Sounds like my kind of fishing.
In fact, we used to do it from occasionally beach bonfires. You'd do that from the front winch of a truck, and you'd throw the roast beef in and hook it up to the front winch of the truck, and then whenever a shark bit it, you just turned on the winch and cranked it in. It's not exactly sport fishing, right? But anyway, so what we used to do is we would you reel the shark in, and then the guy with the gaff hook on the side of the boat gaffs it, and then you pull it in the boat. Everybody jumps up on chairs and stuff and basically beat the crap out of the shark with oars and with baseball bats, whatever we had to kill it.
I saw that go bad in a movie called Jaws.
Well, it went bad this time.
Okay, let's hear it.
So we pulled in this little baby sand shark that was about maybe 24 inches long, maybe a little bit longer than that. And Chris Martinez decides not to jump up on a chair. And this thing's thrashing around, and it bit off his little toe.
Oh,
And
Chris,
so-
you're missing a little toe?
Yeah. So my friend Chris Martinez has only 4 toes on his right foot.
Oh, a
So-
different Chris Martinez.
Yes, my friend Chris
Oh,
Martinez.
okay.
You have all your toes, right?
I do.
All right, good. All right, so it's not the same guy.
No.
All right, so let's get into Chris Martinez. Tell us who you are, what's happening right now.
All right. Well, you know my name, Chris Martinez, but I'm from Fillmore, Utah.
Oh, there you go.
Recently went through treatment through crossover recovery, and now I'm out in sober living here in St. George.
That's the one that episode 12, I believe it was. We had Carol Hollowell come on and talk about crossover. It's one of her many.
Yeah,
Right. It's a great place to be. I really love that place. But
good.
yeah, that taught me a lot about myself, and here I am, just doing my best to work my program and stay sober. So
Love that.
yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how it's interesting that you say it. You learned a lot about yourself because so many people, when it's time to go to treatment, they resist so much, and what they're really resisting is learning about themselves. Right? We're afraid to explore what that is, and so that manifests as we don't want to explore that, so we cover it up with drugs and alcohol.
Right.
And we're all afraid to explore kind of what's going on in our inside of us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
checks out.
Yeah, I think for me, it's not so much being afraid to explore anything. It's just the uncomfortableness of the change and everything. It was what was most difficult.
For sure.
Yeah.
Were you resistful in going to crossover, Chris? How willing were you? Like, what was that circumstance or situation?
You just made up a word, by the way.
What?
Resistful.
Is that not a word?
How about just resistant?
Resistant.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm educated, guys.
Wait, no, I like that. Was it resistful?
Resistful.
I like that.
It's kind of a cool word.
I'm gonna use that in Scrabble.
Dictionary.
Yeah,
Nobody will question me. It's resistful.
It's kind of a cool word, but I don't know if
Stop
it's
being resistful.
an actual word. Stop being resistful.
That's what the cops always say to me when they're beating me. Stop being resistful.
Sure, absolutely. Resistfuling arrest?
I'm just kidding. I've never been beaten by a cop.
Resistfully
Yes, you
arrested.
have. All right, so anyway, tell me what's going on in your life right now. What about Chris Martinez? Where do you live?
Well, I live in Sober Living. It's crossover Sober Living next to the high school.
Where is that?
It's right up next to Dixie High School.
Okay. All right, sweet.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, got a good group of guys there. You know, I've never been Sober Living before, so it's a good experience. A good transition from being in residential out to Sober Living and getting back into the world. So
sure, absolutely. Yeah. You single, in a relationship, married, got any kids, any of that stuff?
No, single. Okay. I've got kids. Yeah, I've got 4 kids.
Do you?
Yeah.
Tell me how old they are. What's their names?
Their names Isaiah, Ava, Taylor, and Grace.
Okay.
Yeah, they're kind of all over the state. I mean, my son lives in Fillmore right now, and I'm working. I'm doing my best to try to build a relationship with them. We've never really had a relationship, so I mean that's a struggle. That's probably one of the hardest things that I've been going through lately is trying to find ways to connect with him and start building that. But I'm putting some effort into that. I could probably put a little more, but I'm doing what I can.
Sure.
My daughters, they live up in Orem, so I mean I talk to them on the phone. I don't get to see them too often. 2 of my daughters, Ava and Taylor, live up in Orem, but I talk to them and try to do my best there to patch things up because I know them the most. And my youngest daughter, Grace, is in Laverkin, but again, it's another same situation there. I'm just working on trying to show her mom that I'm gonna do good and stay the course and so I can get back into her life when the time's right.
Awesome.
Yeah, those are great goals.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, when God said in biblical form, be fruitful and spread your seed, Chris took that very.
Yeah, he did.
He started working on that.
Right.
Being
forth
fruitful,
and multiply. Yeah.
Yes, he's done a great job of that.
God didn't mean you had to do it all by yourself.
What?
There's other people to help.
That's my misinterpretation of what he meant. But
you can leave some of it to other people if you want.
Seriously, that's a great goal, man.
That's cool.
Those are some of the most difficult things that I'm facing. Like as far as the recovery today goes, is finding ways to get back or connecting with my kids, and it's super hard, but it's super important to me. So something I really want. So I'm trying.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I'll just make a comment that I've seen this over and over, right? And if you stay sober, it always works out every single time. Now it doesn't work out in your time frame,
right?
It works out in God's time frame, but it always works out. So.
And Chris, I've heard that from sellers privately too as well. So. We both have gotten that message now.
All right, cool.
So God's in charge.
I believe that. My grandma's always told me something just like that. God has plans for us all, and
are you calling me as old as your grandma?
Don't personalize it, sellers. Don't filter it and personalize it.
Everything's personal. What are you talking about?
I've gone over some cognitive distortions here on the podcast, some personalization.
Isn't that part of the 4 agreements? Take everything personally.
Maybe that was the 5th one. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, right after the one where it says don't take anything personally, it says take everything personally for me. So I do tend to personalize things for sure. Okay, so let's go back to. Oh, go ahead.
Real quick, I just want to let our viewers know this is a pretty special episode 31. Chris is the freshest in recovery than any other all 31 or all 30 before him.
Yeah,
how much
awesome.
clean time? What's your second birthday, Chris?
August 14th when I got clean. So
of
2020.
There you go.
That's
so what's that?
fresh,
I can't do math.
Seven
fresh,
months
baby.
and 2 days.
He can do math because he's keeping track of it.
I can't do math. Yeah,
I like it. Well, that's a lot of math.
but
I don't know if I could do it.
I thought it'd be good to have somebody in early recovery come on. I believe
No,
I
it's
have all
cool.
the faith in him. He's
this is
going
to be a completely different perspective than we
it.
normally get, which is really going to be fun and interesting to explore, I think, because I think there's some things here we can explore for sure. So let me just shout out to my wife. Hello. Happy anniversary, even though it's not your anniversary. She'll know what I'm talking about. Our anniversary is August 14th, which is what he just named as his clean date. So
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
yeah.
What a coincidence.
Yeah, that's an odd coincidence. Okay, so take us back. Let's go back and explore. Let's get to the beginnings. Tell me about Chris Martinez as a kid. Where'd you grow up? What was your life like? And then lead into, I don't care how slowly, but lead into sort of when you started using and drug use a little bit.
All right. Well, my life has always been kind of all over the place, like from an early age. My parents were really young, and so I lived with my grandparents, and that's my earliest memories is being with my grandparents. I can remember the day that my mom came to pick me up, and the times that my dad would come and visit us, because I've never known them to be together. It was just always separate. So, but from my grandparents there in Moab, we moved around. Like I say, I was born in Fillmore, and my sister, same parents that me and my sister both. I've got several brothers and sisters, but one sister, we share the same parents. But me and my sister were with my grandparents in Moab, and then from there, my mom picked us up and moved us around, different places here and there. She was having her struggles too, so it was kind of a rough go at childhood. So, kind of bouncing all over the place, the reservation, and I don't know, all over really. Not a lot of stability.
Yeah, it sounds a little unstable.
Yeah, there was a ton of instability there, and I think my addiction started from all that. A lot of.
Yeah, what do you think that did to you? How does that instability feel to a kid?
Yeah, I have a hard time sitting still or trusting a lot of things from that because no, I'm not sure whether if I'm gonna have a place to live. It's constantly a worry of mine. If that it could be taken away from me at any moment. So stuff like that. I feel like that's a big part of it. I think it shook my confidence a lot. Growing up and things. I didn't ever want to get too close to things or people or go out and try a lot of stuff, sports. Or I was always worried about. If I was going to be here that long.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
What happens if you make the team and then you move?
Yeah. Well, I never even had the confidence to go out and try. I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself. And that's something that I'm building now. Still to this day, I struggle with those sort of things. So
yeah, I think it's easier to have confidence in things that are constant, that aren't going to change and aren't going to move, and that's got to be a tough way to grow up without any sort of foundation of things that are concrete, that are never going to leave, that are never going to move.
Yeah, it's caused some troubles. I've noticed more recently that I've kind of adopted those same kind of lifestyles or life skills or whatever you want to call it, because I don't get too close to people. It's hard for me to kind of, like I say, I'm trying my best to start working on relationships with my kids, but
Right.
but I catch myself a lot of times and have to recorrect or redirect what I'm doing because I kind of distance myself from a lot of things. So that's been a real struggle, growing up and in life today. So
Yeah, sure. Okay, so how was school for you?
Like I say, same sort of things, bouncing around from different schools all the time. And I don't know. I don't think I've been told that I did really good in early years of school, but come middle school and stuff, it wasn't real great for me. I probably had the same kind of issues that other kids have, self-esteem and things like that, or maybe not everyone, but those are some big issues for me. And I wasn't real outgoing, was real shy, and didn't want to speak up or anything. I was put into special ed and things like that and got behind really bad and from 6th grade on. So,
That's not going to help anybody's confidence at all.
No,
Right?
so yeah, no, I was putting, they treated me dumb, and I wouldn't speak up for myself when I tell them that I knew these things. So I just kind of accepted what they gave me, and so it didn't really lead to a lot of good education there. I don't think
Sure.
a lot of that's my fault, but
Well, okay, but not
There's
all
also
of it.
circumstance.
yeah, the circumstance, there was
The thing I love that you're sharing, Chris, is a lot of times I feel like people, personally, when I share my story, I feel like a lot of people just hear this. I used to do drugs and now I don't. And there's so much more to our stories, right? There's so much more to the understanding of how we ended up on this path. So, yeah, man,
Yeah, one thing that being in residential treatment and crossover really taught me was that, it's not really about the drugs, it's about the feelings that led us to use the drugs, So that's something that's probably been the biggest thing that's helped me this far and really opened my mind to myself and what I need to do in order to remain like clean and sober, it's not about the drugs, it's about you using substances to cover up those feelings, those uncomfortable situations or anything that I don't like, which there's a lot of things, that I didn't like about myself and about like the circumstances or situations I was in that I would just try to hide from, and put up these walls about, life around me instead of just, taking care of business and doing what I got to do. I would run away from all that stuff.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay. Tell us how you first started using drugs.
Well, my first use, I think I've always been an addict. I was, I've been told that, for even from infancy, given whiskey and stuff for teething, so things like that.
That's an old mom trick for sure.
Yeah.
Right?
So I mean those sort of things. So
it's
I think
kind of harmful, but moms don't think about that. Like they're not trying to harm their kids.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I love my mom, and she wasn't trying to do nothing bad
Absolutely.
by that. But
sure.
But I think I've always had a taste from it for that sort of thing. I've been an alcoholic. Still am an alcoholic.
Well, just think about that for a second. I mean, what they're doing is you don't get whiskey on your pacifier when you're happy. You get it when you're fussy, right?
Right.
And so moms are already using that as a self-soothing tool, which is ultimately what it turns out to be for most people that are drinking or using drugs anyway, is a tool to kind of soothe themselves when they're having emotions they don't like.
Yeah, and like I say, I love my mom, and she comes from a traumatic past too. So I'm not trying to make her sound bad in any way.
No, I'm not either. I don't. There's no evil intent there by moms. I guarantee you that.
Right.
Almost never is there any evil intent.
Well,
They just know it does calm kids down.
We can put it back on dads too. I remember as a kid, if I played a great baseball game or a great soccer game, Dad said we're going out to get what?
Whiskey.
No, ice cream, right?
Oh, okay.
Ice cream.
Ice cream.
So
Sorry.
it's like
I was thinking whiskey.
You also can use, and I realize maybe this is a stretch. I think sugar is very addictive.
No question.
So whether we're fussy as an infant and we get whiskey, or whether we're celebrating a victory and we get ice cream,
right.
There always has to be some kind of something.
Right.
Yeah.
I
think there's some psychology behind
something
that.
that feels good, something that releases some dopamine.
Yeah.
When in fact
the reward system.
Yeah,
That's right.
When in fact the reward can just be the winning the baseball game, right?
How about this? I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
It's a great reward.
That releases dopamine, by the way, some, but not as much as ice cream. Depending on the flavor, of course, right?
Yeah.
All right. So when did you start using regularly, and what was it you were using?
Well, from a young age, I started I'd sneak and steal some weed and stuff like that from my mom when I could find it. And, I had my friends and we drink with, So I mean, around the age of 8 is when I really started regularly doing these things. So
Yeah, that's a tough start.
yeah.
Yeah,
8
that's an
years old.
early developing brain that's being invaded with some chemicals that are damaging to the early developing
Yeah,
brain.
like my friends that I lived next to. At this point, we lived in Hamilton Fort, but we would huff a lot of gas and things like that. Just whatever we could do to
to get away from Hamilton Fort.
Right. I mean, I didn't even know at that point, I thought that was all that life was. I'd been ripped from the only stability that I knew with my grandparents' house, and to meeting my mom. I can remember. I don't know my mom from birth, but like I said, I met her the day she came and picked me up with my stepdad, and that was kind of and she took us to some place, and I know again she didn't know what she was doing exactly, but it took us to chaos, really, me and my sister both. So and it was just kind of an escape, I guess, when there, I was out there in Hamilton Fort alone a lot of the times, because my mom was very young, when she had me, so she wasn't very responsible herself. So I had the neighbor kids, and we'd hang out, we'd make, forts, and that's kind of when my criminal record started being built too, getting caught stealing from the stores when we go to school and burning down fields and things like that.
Oh,
so
nice.
Yeah.
Hey, we're about out of time in this segment, but when we come back, we're going to talk about sort of the transition to a little bit more about your addiction, but then the transition to recovery. So it's been Chris Martinez, our guest on We Do Recover with Jared Miller, and we're going to take a quick break, about a 30-second break. And
From our amazing sponsors.
Oh, yeah.
Steps Recovery
Steps
Center.
Recovery Center. Don't
You're going to
forget.
hear from them during this little break.
Yep, and we'll be back after the break.
You are listening to We Do Recover with Jared Miller and co-hosted by Dr. Terry Sellers. We'll be right back after this short break with more of We Do Recover with Jared Miller, sponsored by Steps Recovery Center and the Hilton Garden Inn.
I'm Desmond Lomax, one of the clinical executives here at Steps Recovery, and once you become with the Steps family, you're just a part of the Steps family. A lot of us have overcome substances, overcome addiction, and now we're able to help other people. Second of all, we're also going to help you in a way where you can afford to be helped. Third of all, we're going to give you the same quality that many organizations are charging 2 to 3 times, and it's more about you than it is about our organization.
We welcome you back to We Do Recover with Jared Miller, co-hosted by Dr. Terry Sellers. Brought to you by Steps Recovery Center and the St. George Hilton Garden Inn. And now with part 2 of our podcast, Jared Miller and Dr. Terry Sellers.
And we're back with episode 31 of We Do Recover. Episode 31 has our featured guest, Chris Martinez. In part 1, he's shared like his life growing up and the things that happened to him, the environment kind of he came from. We're going to get back to that. Before that, though, we want to mention the Hilton Garden Inn. It's always sunny and bright at the Hilton Garden Inn in St. George,
Except today when
Utah.
it's snowing.
Except today when it's slushing. Thank you, Doc. If you're traveling through southern Utah, give them a Google search. Just type in Hilton Garden Inn, St. George, Utah. They have amazing amenities. I promise you won't regret it. We love those guys.
Yep.
Thank you, Hilton.
I agree.
All right.
Stayed there last night. It was beautiful.
Very nice.
Okay, let's move back. So we got Chris Martinez, our featured guest today. Chris was talking about his early life and how he started using drugs, and we're transitioning towards recovery. But tell us what it is that made you. When it got its worst? What was it like? What was going on in your life when your drug use was the worst? And then what made you decide that you need to change lifestyle?
Well, I've had kind of ups and downs like the whole time, in life, going like doing little spells what I do better than I would. I won't say good, but I would say better at times than I was like other times. Like I've been pretty successful in periods of my life, when I had decent jobs and things like that, but I kind of always thrown it away, and I or something came up, like relationship issues or something, and then I would turn back to using and things like that. So, I've gone on this roller coaster pretty much my whole life about like what I'm doing, either like or using. I wouldn't use one substance and think that I was doing good, but I've turned completely to alcohol or something and be, drinking like way more than anyone should. But so I don't know, the rock bottom, like it happened like several years. Like I say, I started when a very young age, and got into the more hardcore drugs, or what people call more hardcore. I'm not trying to, make one seem less damaging than another, but
right. But we know what you mean. What were your hardcore drugs?
Meth is one of the biggest ones, meth and heroin. But heroin was, that was real brief, towards the very end. That was my rock bottom, was getting into that. So, and kind of, I started using meth, at a young age too, at 14. So
whoa. Yeah,
so I was, for a long time, just, I guess, I didn't see, how damaging it could be, the way that I used it or whatever, and the way that made me felt. Like I never really considered like how much damage it was doing to myself and to my family and everyone around me. Like the way I was acting and how it was, changing me into this person that I wasn't really supposed to be. So
right.
So.
We tend to be that way, though, right? I remember, and we've talked about this before, but so one of my things was pills, and I remember thinking about like how much Tylenol was in the pill. We're not worried about what the components that are really harming our brain, like the Percocet like the oxycodone part of Percocet. We're worried about the Tylenol part of Percocet because it might hurt our liver.
Well, just because we want to come up with an excuse to get something without the Tylenol, probably.
Yeah, well, for sure.
A little stronger.
There's that too.
I know I was guilty of that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
At least you were thinking about your body in some way. I
Yeah.
wasn't. I've been in the hospital for a couple times for shutting my liver down or nearly shutting it down from alcohol. So
Well, it's interesting because I actually saw a patient yesterday who told me was asking about some medications to help him with a couple of different things, some sleep and some stuff, and he says, "Oh, I don't like putting chemicals in my body," says the meth addict.
yeah,
The guy was addicted to meth, but he doesn't want a sleeping pill to help him sleep. So yeah, it's funny how our brains do that to us, though.
Yeah.
right.
For sure. Okay, so when did it change? What happened, and is there an event that happened, and then how did you change?
Well, like I said, I mean, just going through life and different like ups and downs. I think it was just like perfect timing for me to find recovery. You know, like I was when I got to my lowest point. You know, I was using heroin and meth both, and I had started shooting up and things like that. So I was in a real rough spot, homeless and like kind of bouncing around from different places. And you know, I was reached out to by my youngest daughter's mom, and she just kind of, you know, she told me, you know, like, you know, if I could just get my life together, you know, I could start seeing my daughter again or be in her life, you know. So I think that was a huge thing. When I fell off the hardest, I guess, would be when I wasn't in her life no more, because we were together when she was born, you know, like,
Right.
and that was something that I wasn't prepared to lose, you know, even though I can see now like the reasons why I lost that relationship and why I wasn't there. I wasn't really ready for that, and that was a hard blow for me to, you know, to deal with. And I didn't deal with it in the right ways. You know, I turned to drinking and using like even more than I was already. So, you know, it just spiraled like further and further downhill for me like after that. And like I say, I got to the point where, you know, like, you know, shooting up and things that I swore I would never do, you know, like, because I'm not that kind of addict, you know, like I don't know. I thought I was different than everyone else, but
Sure.
you know, the progressiveness of things and how it affects people, you know, it's kind of all the same. It gets there like eventually. And I realize that, you know, now that I'm, you know, now that I've been through it, you know, it sucks that, you know, I kind of looked at people, you know, like I was better a lot,
Sure.
you know, until it happened to me. And I remember breaking down like one time when I was in jail and you know, I was coming down, and I was withdrawing and things like that, and I was scratching at my arms, you know, because I was fiending. And I remember like doing all these foul things to people or talking bad about them because they shot up and something that wasn't
sure.
me. And it came rushing back to me, and it was real emotional for me to realize that, you know, like the wrong that I'd done there, you know, and how it affected them and me, like, you know, like karma's, you know, a real thing, and it came back to get me for sure.
Yeah.
And
That's not an uncommon sort of misperception, though. Like drugs and alcohol is this long road, and at the end of that road is death, institutions, jail, you know, all that stuff. And but there's always, when we're on that road, that's out there in the horizon somewhere. But there's little steps along the way, and as long as you can point to somebody on the road that's closer to death, institutions, and jail than you, then you can justify, look, I'm not as bad as that guy, right?
Right.
But the truth is, it's all the same road, and you either get off the road or you're going to get to death, institutions, and jail.
Yeah, and I would say it's the same thing in recovery, right? Like now that I'm doing the SUDC thing and counseling and working with people, I find myself frequently saying, you know, as I'm doing the groups, look, guys, there's no difference between me and you.
Right.
I still have cognitive distortions.
Right.
I still have triggers. I still have all these. The only difference is I'm a little further down the road, just a little more time than you.
Yeah.
And as Chris was sharing that, I kind of wanted to dive into maybe a little bit of that. I'm sure you've done some self-discovery. I'm sure you've done some inner perspective work. What would you say your biggest trigger is, or what would you say your biggest reason for use was? Like for me, I know that it was loss and grief. What was that for you?
I think like the biggest was probably just not being comfortable with myself, you know, like how I seen myself, you know, the like shame, I think, is probably the best thing I could say, or the biggest factor for my use was like, you know, like, I don't know, just different things, different places I've been, different, like I shamed myself quite a bit with the you know, lost relationships, the destruction of a lifestyle that I was trying to build over and over and over again. You know, I kind of beat myself up about that all the time. So it was real easy for me to use that and just, you know, feel like I wasn't worth it anyways, you know, and it didn't matter, or lie, you know, that's a lie that I kind of built up around using is justifying it that way. But
so lack of self-confidence, not feeling good enough, kind of feeling like imposter syndrome a little bit, maybe like
kind of just like a real POS at times too, you know. So yeah. Yeah.
What does that mean?
I've been told I can't cuss on the radio.
So. Sean's over there nodding his head.
Yeah.
Piece of steer manure.
There you go.
Yeah, but you know, those, like, I like what you just barely said about the, you know, the road and we're on, it's kind of all the same road, and recovery is the same way. You know, recovery, you know, going into, like, I was trying to get into rehab or I was at least, you know, had the idea in my head, you know, like, and I was calling around different places trying to get in before I was arrested. You know, I still, you know, I had warrants and things like that out for me, and I wasn't really putting a lot of effort into it. I was trying, but I was still an addict, you know. So I would, you know, until I use, and I'd be like, start coming down, I'd be like, oh, I need to get in rehab, and then I like, okay, well, then those feelings were overwhelming for me, so I turned back to what worked, and so it was kind of a rough way to go about it. But then I was arrested, you know, and I thank God for that, because, you know, that was huge for me, because I was right there wanting it, but I just couldn't quit myself. So the jail, you know, like that little bit of forced sobriety kind of gave me some clarity that I was really going to go for it. And so,
yeah, I love that.
You were grateful you got arrested?
So that's
what is wrong with this guy?
Yeah, that's a great comment, because that sounds terrible, right? To most people, like, you're not grateful you get arrested until you get through it and realize that did something for you, right? Because can you imagine a guy just being arrested saying, I'm so happy I'm being arrested?
No.
You got to get through it. You got to get some perspective, and then you can look back. And if the arrest gave you something, like a pause for a minute, like some time in jail where you can't use, or then you become grateful for it.
So there's steps to surrender, right? Like there is actual steps to surrender. And a lot of it has to do with self-reflection. And a lot of it has to do with taking a look in at yourself and asking yourself, what is it that I want, right? What difference do I want? And I think institutions and jails are great for that, because when you're running and gunning and doing your thing, and especially on methamphetamine, when your brain's going 1,000 miles an hour, you don't have a lot of time for that inner perspective, or you don't have a lot of time to ask yourself those questions.
Sure,
but like Chris is saying, when you get those silver bracelets by the, was it Fillmore?
Fillmore, yeah.
By the Fillmore PD, guess what you got now?
Time. You got some time.
You got some time.
You got free time.
Yeah, I mean, it might sound crazy to some people, but it was a relief for me to be arrested, you know, because like the way the life was going, the things that I was doing, where I was about to go, even though I knew it was a bad idea, but that was the hard part, is I knew I couldn't stop myself, you know. Yep. I knew that it was all bad and things like that. So when I got arrested, like in August 14th, like it was a relief for me, you know, like it was kind of like this huge weight off my shoulders, and because I did want recovery, and I was talking with people and trying to reach out and trying to find a way to get in, but you know, I just like I say, I couldn't bring myself to do it just myself, you know. I had to have some help, and you know, God answers prayers, you know, and sometimes some strange ways, and He answered mine in some handcuffs. So yeah,
absolutely, handcuffs can be an answer to prayer for sure.
Yep.
So one other thing I wanted to point out real quick, and then I want to move on, but the concept of, you know, you look back and you shame yourself a little bit over maybe choosing drugs and alcohol over your daughters, and that's just not the choice that addicts are making. The choice is between, because when you boil it all down to what's going on biochemically in your midbrain, you think you're going to die, and that drugs keep you alive. Now, this is all, again, subconscious, and I've talked about it before, and I'm sorry that I harp on it over and over, but I think it's a key principle. Your midbrain thinks you're going to die, and it thinks you're not going to die when you get drugs. And so the choice is never between your family and drugs. The choice is between survival and your family, and your brain won't allow you to die, because that's its job, to keep you alive. Your brain won't allow you to die, so you're choosing to live, and your family suffers because of that.
Yeah, I got a little. You mind, Chris, if I take 1 minute to a spin off of what the doc's saying here? Last night I'm doing family group at Steps Recovery where I'm doing my internship, and one of the people that was a loved one, a family member, said, you know, I've always just thought it was a choice, and you just didn't have the will to stop. And in the share, I asked her, I said, have you ever been in a situation where you've been drowning? And she laughed and she said, it's funny because the client that you have there, you know, held me underwater kind of teasingly, and I started to panic. I started to have anxiety. I started becoming fearful. And I said, okay, perfect. I said, what a coincidence that this came up, and now I'm going to use this to help you understand. I said, what did you want more than anything when you were being held under the water? And she said, well, to breathe, of course. And I said, that's what it's like in active addiction. I'm not going to debate whether it's a choice up front or not, because we don't need to go there. Right. But once you're in the depths of active addiction, it's like being held underneath water, and all you want to do is breathe. Yep. Well, all you want to do is basically get your brain what it's telling you have to survive.
Right. That's a great way to
that way it's no longer a choice. It's not a will thing. Right. You can't will or want your way out of that.
No, I agree. I think that's an important point. If we've spread any message at all, it's that the guilt and shame that people with addiction feel is really the guilt and shame of just wanting to try to stay alive.
Yeah.
And it's a bad way to stay alive. It's not real. That's not true that drugs keep you alive, but your midbrain actually perceives it that way.
It's a lie that we believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a trick that we tell ourselves or whatever. Like, but I like what you were saying. You know, like you can't compare it. Like, it's not about choosing your family. You know, because a lot of times that shame came up from people, everyone around me. You know, other family members saying, "Oh, you should do this. What do you think?" And you've got kids, like, and kind of shaming me all along the way. You know, and I know these things, and I couldn't understand it. So I'm sitting there beating myself up, like calling myself these names, and because I can't quit because, you know, or I can't even quit for my kids. But it's not really about that. Right. You know, it's just about.
Absolutely not.
It's about, you know, everything else, like the feelings that I've always ran away from, and trying to mask those, you know, because I didn't want to be vulnerable, or I didn't want to be like, you know, seen. I just didn't want to have those feelings. I didn't want any kind of negative feelings around it. And you know what my answer was, like the air, you know, you're talking about with drowning. My answer was always the substances. So and it was destructive, but it's what I chose.
Right. But your midbrain actually thinks it's working.
Yeah, it did
so
for a long time.
It doesn't. And your midbrain's unconscious, so you don't realize how destructive it is. You only realize it helps you feel better.
Right.
So, okay, so you're in jail. What happens next?
Well, you know, my sister, you know, like I went to jail, and my sister knew that I was trying to get into recovery. So, you know, she called around, and I got turned down from a few places, from no insurance and things like that. And then And I kind of, you know, I was an emotional roller coaster in there. It was only a month in there, but, you know, I'd go up and down, like, where I get in bad attitudes, you know, like she'd call me, or I'd call her, and she'd say, oh, this place, you can't find a place that'll take me. So I'd get discouraged and want to quit, you know, and then, but she finally found one that would accept me, and that was Crossover.
Oh, sweet.
And, you know, like, at that point, it was when I was going down. So, like, that scared me, really, when she said that you've got a place that you can go. Like, I panicked in jail, you know, like I didn't want to leave jail, you know, I wanted to stay there because
I was clean.
Yeah, well, I was clean, I was good. I had some my homies in there, and, you know, we're like, you know, we're you know, having a good time watching TV and everything, and then here I am, like, going into something that I've wanted, but I've never experienced before, and I didn't know what to expect.
It's all new. Sure.
Yeah, so that's kind of the feelings that I've always ran away from, and led me to use the unknown, you know. Right. So going into rehab, you know, it was super stressful for me. Like I was so scared, like walking through like the doors of the recovery house, and it's like way worse than I've ever felt, like going into jail or anything like that. You know, it's so much more scary, so much more real, like going into treatment.
Because you didn't know what to expect.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know what to expect. Like, so I was terrified here, you know, like I'd like to think I'm a tough guy or whatever sometimes, but you know, then I was shaking like a leaf going into rehab. So
I love the honesty right now. I just got to say that. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah. So
that's cool.
Yeah. So I mean, and it was cool. Like I still have like, I still like face like struggles and things like that every day, you know, and I don't know. It's like you were saying about the road for addiction. You know, we're all on the same road, and we're all going to get to that same point if we keep staying on that road. And recovery is the same way, you know, like all on that road. And over time, you know, I'm gonna look back and see the things and understand them. But for right now, you know, I don't know what to expect in the future. I do my best to try to do the next best thing always, but but it isn't always easy. It's a really,
Yeah.
it's a really tough thing. Like, going into rehab, and then the second time I was super scared was when I was about to get out of rehab. Like, that was a really terrifying thing for me because I have got a little bit of clean time. I've learned some things about myself, and I'm scared. I don't know what to expect out of the world now. So I go back in the world, and I don't know how my friends or people that I used to talk to, or if they're going to approach me, and if I'm going to be strong enough. I was worried about certain people like finding me or it dragging me down, or me just jumping back in because that's what was comfortable.
So those are common fears, right?
Yeah.
You might think you're the only person that has them, but the truth is everybody sort of feels something along those lines at some point in their recovery, in their early recovery particularly.
Right.
I also want to point out that Chris said it was hard, but you're alive.
Right.
Yeah.
You're here.
Yeah.
You're on this podcast.
Yeah.
You got 7 months clean, brother.
Yeah.
You're doing it.
Yeah.
Keep swimming.
Yeah,
Keep swimming.
And listen, every day can be hard, but you have gone through the 7 hardest months so far.
Yeah, a lot of things have happened too in the months that I've been out of rehab, like huge things, first getting out and going into sober living, that was super scary for me because again, I didn't know what to expect, and to St. George, I'm not really from St. George. I've never really been down here much, so I didn't know the area. I was real timid about everything around me, so that was a hard one.
This is the trick our brains play on us, right?
Yeah,
because we're afraid of new things, and the reason we're afraid of new things is we're capable of conjuring up worst-case scenarios.
Catastrophizing.
Like, this is not going to be good. There's something bad could happen. So instead of looking at things as new opportunities for growth, we look at them as new opportunities to screw something up or new, and that's, our brains do that to us.
Yeah, and screwing things up has always been a thing for me, so, and then now that I've got something to actually lose, it was like really, really scary for me to to think I'm I used to say things like in treatment, like I was afraid of raising the bar on myself. When people started expecting things out of me, then it was stressful for me because as long as I was, a dirtbag, so to say, or whatever, then no one really expected much out of me. So I didn't. But now that I've start reaching milestones and things, I've got more to lose. It's a balance that I've got to find because it can be overwhelming at times and stressful. Worried about losing that, so losing like the recovery that I've gained. But I've heard a good thing. We don't really, like the depth of our recovery isn't based on the time that we have in recovery. It's just what we wanted to get out of it.
Absolutely. So. Yeah, I heard that once too.
Yeah.
I was talking to some girl who I had a lot more clean time than she did, and I don't know, the topic came up of how long I've been clean and sober, and she mentioned to me that she woke up earlier than me, so she had been sober longer today than I had. And the truth is almost everyone wakes up earlier than me, so most people have more clean time than I do on the day that they're talking about. Right? That stuff, the length of time is, I don't know, is it way better? Not really. I mean, I think it would be harder for me to relapse right now. Like, I think I have more tools than I used to have, and but I could still relapse. The problem would be if I did, it'd be harder for me to go back, too.
I think, too, like Chris is touching on, with time comes confidence, right? Like, his biggest fear was the unknown, that you didn't know if he could do this, right? Well, with time, you've been through enough situations, and hopefully you've been able to walk through them that you go, yeah, if I can do that and stay sober, I can do this, right? The time just reaffirms to you that you got this.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I throw a question at Chris?
No, not at all.
So we got 3 minutes left, Chris. Okay. You've done some amazing things, but what I want to know is what's next, man? Like, what's next for Chris Martinez? What future goals do you have on the horizon?
Well, the future goals that I've got is to, obviously stay clean and stay sober and get into working in recovery and like, I don't know, being getting some schooling in so I can be a counselor or something in recovery. I'd like to be like, I'd like to help guys like myself, in the future to find it. So there were some cool people that I met in crossover when I got there. You being one of them, Jared, like that I look up to, and I really respect and that have been there. And I could learn from, and I want to be that for somebody else in the future. So that's one of my biggest goals right now.
That's common. That's cool, though, isn't it?
Well, and we might know a few people. There might be a few people that listen to this thing that might be able to help get you involved in working in the industry.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Sure.
Can I tell a quick little story?
Yeah.
So I decided I wanted to work in this industry, and I called a certain treatment center, I won't say who, about 1,000 times, and they never called me back, and I could never get an interview. And then And then I talked to Dr. Sellers. I said, hey, I want to work in this industry. Not only did I not have to call them, they called me.
Awesome.
Weird how that works, huh?
Yeah.
Good to know people, and we know some people.
We know some people.
yeah,
you
we've
might
been
end
around.
up making that happen.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that'll be cool.
You do your part and watch the universe open up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. I mean,
true.
what I've learned too is this, the universe will give you what you need. So
Yeah.
I've always, believed in that sort of thing. And it's working out for me, and then like recovery is really working out for me. It's still hard at times, like almost every day, there's something that comes up that is kind of triggering, or I think of the difference that I am now than I was then, or how I would have reacted or handled that. And every time that something does, I'm actually learning something and getting something out of it. So I'm able to move forward and get through it. And then I look back and then I like think of, how amazing that is to me, that where I'm at today versus where I was at, it's still not where I want to be, but I'm getting there closer and closer every day. So
Can you take the last 40 seconds and give a message to love to your kids?
to my kids, all right. Well, my son Isaiah, Ava, Taylor, and Grace, I love you guys, and I know that we've got a lot of catching up to do and things to work on and building these relationships together. But I look forward to doing all those things with you guys, and one day, hopefully that we'll be able to actually, I don't know, to feel like we've always been a part of each other's lives. And I love you.
Beautiful. Jared, take us out of here.
Thank you guys for listening to episode 31 with Chris Martinez. Thank you for sharing your journey in this thing we call recovery.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Join us next week for episode 32. Like this, share this.
Thank you for joining us today on We Do Recover with Jared Miller.
Help us spread our message of hope. Like, comment, and share.
If you have any topics or ideas for future shows, please share that on our Facebook page.
That Facebook page is We Do Recover with Jared Miller. If you or a loved one needs help, please reach out to us. Again, thank you for listening. Brought to you by Steps Recovery Center and the St. George Hilton Garden Inn. This has been a production from a podcast studio.